No, but we have a congressional act now to requiring the release, but they're going to say, you know
subject
what?
To
Tom
redaction.
Hanks, it's unfair that he was mentioned because he was eating Skittles.
Subject to redaction. Subject to redaction.
And we all know what that means. That's to protect.
That's why I'm saying you will never be satisfied with what's released.
Shocking claims are spreading online after users on encrypted forums began circulating what they say are new Epstein leaks, with some even dragging Paris Hilton into the speculation. According to these unverified posts, supposed unseen footage from the island appears to show a young Hilton among familiar faces tied to Epstein's orbit. For years, her name has surfaced in rumors and documentaries often dismissed as tabloid noise. But these latest circulating images, whose authenticity has not been confirmed, have reignited controversy, sparking outrage among viewers while Hilton's team works to shut down what they call completely false and misleading content.
Again, there was new names in some of the emails that I think investigators need to look at. In particular, I jumped on the name of a modeling agent who, in a similar fashion to Jean-Luc Brunel, who brought underage girls from overseas to Jeffrey Epstein for abuse. There was another man. What was interesting about this other individual is that he also apparently provided young models for Donald Trump's modeling agents.
The online frenzy intensified as more than 20,000 pages of Epstein-related emails, schedules, and logs were released by the House Oversight Committee. And within the flood of documents, a few exchanges caught the internet's attention, Epstein referencing Trump as that dog that hasn't barked, mentions of Virginia Giuffre, and vague hints about young stars allegedly brought into his circle by Ghislaine Maxwell. That speculation has now resurfaced alongside old claims that Maxwell once attempted to approach a young Paris Hilton at a Manhattan party in 2000. An account supported only by witness recollections and not by Hilton herself, who has repeatedly denied ever knowing Maxwell, telling the New York Times, "I don't even remember ever meeting her. I'm just a good clickbait name." Still, an early 2000s photo of Hilton standing beside Maxwell and Donald Trump at an On and John fashion event has reemerged online, viewed through a new lens by those revisiting Epstein's history, even though Hilton maintains she had no connection to the group. 5 years after that photo, Epstein would take a plea deal for solicitation involving a minor, serving 13 months in what prosecutors later condemned as a sweetheart arrangement.
Her, doesn't it? She probably wants to get out early. So I think that we have more digging to do. I think the DOJ transparency effort here is the right thing. But the reason it's on a Friday, Will, is I think there are no smoking guns. There's other places we have to look.
Well, Buck, you appropriately...
Now, 2 decades later, as the Epstein network continues to unravel, the renewed scrutiny is pulling anyone mentioned in its orbit, including Paris Hilton, back into the spotlight. Sources following the document releases claim that the purported new footage isn't the only link being discussed online. Investigators reviewing Maxwell's communications have noted that names from early 2000s fashion circles, publicists, party hosts, scouts, and photographers appear repeatedly in emails from Epstein's assistants Sarah Kellen and Nadia Marcinko, both previously identified as unindicted co-conspirators. Hilton's name has resurfaced in this chatter as well, not as confirmed evidence but as part of allegations that Maxwell once referenced her in shorthand prosecutors say she often used, echoing comments recalled by Christopher Mason in a 2020 docuseries, where he claimed Maxwell pointed her out across a room and said she'd be perfect for Jeffrey. What makes the renewed interest so explosive is simply the timing, with the latest document dump prompting the public to reassess old rumors through a modern lens, even as Hilton maintains she had no involvement.
I think these things like Epstein, and there's probably a bunch of other similar operations that are being run, they provide you with like a really good time, or maybe you're a high profile, extremely wealthy individual, and it's hard for you to get hosed. And some guy tells you, hey, we've got everything covered, you come to my island, nothing, what happens on the island stays on the island.
The supposed leaks emerged just days before the House vote on whether to release the full Epstein files, triggering a political firestorm as President Trump, now facing renewed scrutiny over his past association with Epstein, dismissed the document releases as a Democrat hoax, even as emails attributed to Epstein described Trump as borderline insane and hinted at knowing compromising details about him. Within these exchanges are vague references to young stars introduced by GM, a phrase analysts online speculate might include Paris Hilton, though nothing has been verified. The mere possibility that her name could appear in redacted sections has fueled a social media frenzy, with hashtags labeling her a forgotten recruit, despite Hilton maintaining she had no involvement. Commentators have pointed out that similar narratives have emerged before. Public figures once seen as harmless socialites suddenly recast as peripheral figures in larger power games involving billionaires and politicians. Some former acquaintances have offered anecdotal memories about Hilton's private meetings during the early 2000s fashion scene, though none of these claims were ever proven. Now, with unverified visuals circulating online and being interpreted as interactions with people later connected to Epstein's network, speculation has escalated sharply, blurring the line between rumor and reality.
Stephanie, there have also been more cases filed in court with those accusers attempting to go after potential co-conspirators.
That's exactly right, Whit. 2 more women are suing Epstein's estate. They say they were recruited by an unnamed Epstein employee. Now, this is in addition to the lawsuit filed against Epstein's longtime friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, who is also accused of recruiting for him. Maxwell denied.
Hilton's team has declined to offer any detailed response beyond reiterating that she was never involved in Epstein's circle, while attorneys representing victims argue that the situation reflects a wider pattern of high-profile figures shielding one another from scrutiny. Although the Department of Justice maintains that no official client list exists, survivors have begun compiling their own informal database from scattered leaks and partial documents, drawing attention to a redacted entry labeled PH, which some online sources speculate could correspond to Hilton's initials and alleged appearances in archived flight records, claims that remain unverified. If such speculation were ever confirmed, it would imply visits to Epstein-associated locations beyond the often-cited photo from a 2000 fashion event. But for now, these theories rest on incomplete evidence. What has intensified public reaction is not only the circulating footage but the emotional dissonance between Hilton's public persona and the shadowy narrative being constructed around her, blurring the boundaries between fact, rumor, and online interpretation.
Knew that they were underage. How do you just have this be so one-sided? It is, I mean, it's such a miscarriage of justice. This is not what justice is supposed to look like. It's just, it's incredibly disappointing.
In recent years, Paris Hilton has spoken publicly about her own experiences of exploitation, but online discussions now twist those disclosures into speculation over whether she was solely a victim or somehow entangled in the environment surrounding Epstein, claims that remain unproven. Some anonymous insiders quoted in online forums suggest her later prominence in nightlife and early 2000s modeling circles gave her a kind of proximity to the same social networks Maxwell operated in, a vague idea repeatedly echoed in fan theories that blur the distinction between association and involvement. Commentators have pointed to an unsealed Epstein communication with author Michael Wolff in which he jokes about young women who later became recruiters, a comment whose timeline overlaps with Hilton's early fame but has no confirmed connection to her, though the coincidence fuels continuing rumor. Analysts mapping social circles from that era note that Hilton's party photos include some figures later investigated for trafficking. Yet these overlaps are circumstantial and common in celebrity culture. While speculation persists about how much she knew or didn't know, Hilton maintains in recent interviews that she was a target of abuse herself and had no role in Epstein's operations.
It's layers upon layers. It's those Russian nesting dolls, and you open it, and there's another one in there, and you open, there's another one in there.
Corruptions at all time, bro. The Epstein files.
I heard there's no files. I heard it's a hoax, and then all of a sudden he's going to release the files. Well, I thought there was no files.
Man,
he wants an investigation now.
The irony of Paris Hilton once calling herself a good clickbait name now echoes through a fresh wave of scandal, as circulating footage, while proving no wrongdoing, has intensified public association and pushed her into the center of online speculation. In a digital world that builds verdicts before facts, the island clips have turned Hilton into both symbol and suspect in a saga where entertainment culture collides with political power, and the slow drip of Epstein-related files continues to unsettle circles from Congress to Hollywood. As committees debate further releases and whispers spread about additional tapes allegedly featuring familiar faces from the 2000 fashion show photo, the internet frames this moment as one where the facade may start to fracture. With Paris back in the spotlight, attention has shifted toward the individual some commentators claim may have introduced her to Epstein's orbit, figures described as fixers or handlers in survivor testimonies that mention celebrity baiting, a tactic said to make private gatherings appear glamorous and harmless, though none of these claims have been verified and remain part of a broader, fast-moving online narrative.
Interview
is and never was part of the Epstein files. She was sentenced in 2025. This was an interview by Trump's lawyer to protect Trump from the fallout about the Epstein files. What this really is nothing but a sketchy PR stunt by the Department of Justice. And we have seen this movie before. The Maxwell interview is to the Epstein files what the Barr letter was to the Mueller investigation.
If the speculation circulating online were true, it would suggest that Paris Hilton was not merely a random guest in the wrong place at the wrong time, but part of a larger social network observers say may have been used to lure others, though there is no verified evidence of this. The discussion has reignited interest in overlaps between high-profile figures, including Donald Trump, who was photographed with both Epstein and Hilton and is mentioned in selectively redacted emails from Epstein in 2011, in which he referred to Trump as the dog that hasn't barked, prompting renewed debate over what Trump may have known and when. Analysts and commentators point to the administration's shifting messaging, first denying connections, then calling for transparency, as potentially strategic, while Paris's presence in the 2000 fashion event photo alongside Epstein and Trump continues to fuel speculation online. Though these connections are widely discussed, it's important to note that nothing in these reports confirms wrongdoing, and the narrative largely exists in the realm of rumor and interpretation.
Again, the big picture is we don't normally look in prosecutors' files if there's not a trial. You know, we kind of let the evidence play out after an indictment. We see what happens at a trial. Here we've got this kind of bizarro world, I think maybe fueled by special counsels where they write reports, where everyone feels like we're entitled because we care so much about Jeffrey Epstein to look at all the evidence and find out if there's other names.
Critics argue that Paris Hilton's recent efforts to reclaim her narrative, speak openly about past trauma, and rebrand herself as an advocate may also serve as a strategic defense in a media environment that thrives on selective memory. Industry commentators and some former assistants have speculated that Epstein's operations were not only about exploitation but also about influence, training celebrities to normalize his presence among elite circles, though none of these claims are verified. Observers note that Hilton's rise from socialite to global brand coincided with this period, leading some to suggest that her charisma and public image could have been shaped, in part, by the same social machinery, a theory reinforced by references in sealed testimonies to recruits turned recruiters during her early 2000s fame, though no names are confirmed. Analysts describe Epstein's gatherings as highly strategic, designed to showcase loyalty and exert influence under the guise of glamorous events, with some speculating that stars like Hilton were positioned as symbols of safety and allure to draw others in. While these interpretations remain unverified, they fuel ongoing debate about how fame, influence, and survival intersected within the shadowy networks surrounding Epstein and his associates.